I always knew my wife was a bit odd. She didn't like to talk about her past, avoided talking about her family and never showed old photos. But after one random incident, I realized her secrets were much deeper than I could have imagined. When I first saw Emma, she seemed like the sweetest and most humble girl in the world. She was a little reserved, but her smile was always warming. We met at a vintage car show. I was trying to take a picture of a rare Mustang, but I accidentally caught her in the frame. Emma was embarrassed, but eventually offered to take a photo together. That was our first date. We dated for about a year before we got married. I was pretty sure I knew her pretty well. She always said she didn't have any close friends and that her parents died in an accident when she was a teenager. I stayed out of her past, accepting her for who she was. It all started the evening I got home earlier than usual. Emma was sitting at her laptop in the kitchen, completely absorbed in her work. I walked up behind her, about to kiss her on the cheek, but she abruptly closed the screen and smiled strangely. "Oh, I didn't see you there," she said. "What are you looking at?" I asked, trying to lighten the mood. "Just old pictures," she replied, avoiding my gaze. I glimpsed something that looked like blueprints or schematics on the screen for a second, but I decided not to pay any attention to it. We ate dinner, and Emma looked tense. I asked if everything was okay, but she only nodded. Later that night, when she was asleep, I decided to check her laptop. It was passworded, though she had never put passwords on it before. That was already weird. The next day when I went out on the porch, I noticed a crumpled piece of paper there. Unfolding it, I felt a chill inside. "You don't really know her. Check the garage." I looked around, there was no one outside. I thought it was someone's evil joke. But something inside alerted me. I decided to check the garage. When I opened the doors, at first glance I didn't notice anything unusual. But suddenly a wooden panel on the back wall caught my eye. It looked freshly painted, unlike the rest of the old flooring. I pushed on it, and the panel slid open, revealing a small cache. Inside, I found a metal box with a code lock. I tried several combinations, but nothing worked. I was about to give up when I remembered our wedding date. Click. The lock opened. I opened the drawer and saw several envelopes and an old notebook. On one of the envelopes was written, "Project Epsilon. Object D17. I flipped through the notebook. They were notes about some kind of mission, encrypted with symbols and codes. Among them were old pictures of Emma in her military uniform. I froze. Why had she never said she'd been in the military? Emma had always been neat and organized, but lately her behavior had become erratic. She left things out of place, forgot simple little things, and sometimes got dates mixed up. I tried to chalk it up to fatigue, but the find in the garage kept me on my toes. That night, I tentatively struck up a conversation. Did you ever serve in the army?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She froze and stared at me. "No, of course not. Why do you ask?" "I just saw a picture of it at an exhibition." I saw it. Her face relaxed, but I could see her hands trembling. The next day I met our neighbor Mark. He was standing by the fence, like he was waiting for me. "Tom, did you find something?" His voice was quiet and wary. "What do you mean?" I pretended I didn't understand. "I saw you messing around in the garage yesterday." "Look, you better not go in there." "Why not?" "I'm wary. Just trust me. She's not who she says she is." I flinched. "What do you know?" "I can't talk." Mark stepped back, casting one last look at the house. I went back inside and noticed that Emma looked worried. She came over to me and hugged me, as if testing my reaction. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just tired." Later that night, I woke up to the sound of voices. Cautiously walking out of the bedroom, I noticed that the light in the living room was on. I walked closer and saw Emma talking on the phone. "He doesn't know anything," she whispered. "I'm trying not to give myself away." "Yeah, that's the plan." I drew back, my heart racing. When Emma finished talking, I quickly went back to the bedroom and pretended to sleep. She lay quietly beside me, but I knew something was going on. The next day I met Mark again. He said briefly. She's not your wife. Do you know that? What? What are you talking about? That's not Emma. The real Emma died a few years ago. I froze. You're delusional. I've been living with her for 3 years. It's not her. They switched her. You have no idea what you're dealing with. I was in shock. Is all this really true? Or is Mark just paranoid? I got home, and Emma was cooking dinner as if nothing had happened. But when she noticed my tension, her gaze turned icy. Did you find out something? Her voice was strangely steady. No. Just a bad day. How do you know if someone who lives under the same roof with you is really who they say they are? I woke up the next morning with a heavy feeling in my chest. Emma was no longer the person I'd once known. But I couldn't figure out how a person could change so drastically. Or was I just going crazy? Emma was already sitting in the kitchen, quietly drinking coffee as if nothing had happened. I decided to proceed cautiously and not give away my suspicions. Good morning, I said with a strained smile. Hi, she replied, not taking her eyes off the window. I noticed that she was holding her phone again, though she usually never picked it up in the morning. I turned on the TV to distract myself, but the thought of the night's conversation persisted. When Emma left the house, I immediately dialed Tom. He knew about my doubts and suggested we meet. Dude, I have a bad feeling about this, I said when he arrived. Did you check her cell phone? No, she keeps it to herself all the time. We decided we needed to find a way to find out who she was talking to that night. Tom suggested putting a bug on her phone. I was hesitant at first, but I knew it was the only way to find out the truth. When Emma returned, I noticed that she looked worried. Her fingers nervously fiddled with the hem of her sweater. How was your day? I asked. Fine, she replied, avoiding my gaze. That evening, when she went to the bathroom, I quietly picked up her cell phone. To my surprise, it wasn't locked. I quickly opened the recent calls, most of the numbers were hidden. But one message caught my attention. We have to finish the job. He can't find out. I froze, feeling everything inside clench. Who mustn't find out? I took a screenshot and sent it to my phone. Just before I could put the device back down, Emma came out of the bathroom. What are you doing here? Just checking to see if work called, I lied quickly. She nodded, but there was something strange in her gaze. Emma was suddenly spending more time out of the house. She'd leave without warning and come back looking confused. One day I tried to follow her. She walked into a small cafe on the outskirts of town, but she didn't sit down at a table, she walked to the backyard. I waited a couple minutes and cautiously walked to the window. There she stood with some man in a dark jacket. They were discussing something, and at some point he handed her an envelope. I couldn't hear the words, but their faces looked tense. When Emma came home, I pretended to be asleep. She quietly walked into the bedroom, hid the envelope in her bag and lay down next to me. The next day I met with Tom and showed him the photo of the envelope. We need to find out what's inside, he said. I'll try to pick it up when she leaves. Luck smiled on me. Emma had gone to the store, leaving her bag in the kitchen. I pulled out the envelope and opened it carefully. Inside was a map with coordinates and a photo of some building. On the back of the photo was Operation Complete. Report situation. I realized that the situation was beyond my comprehension. I took a picture of the contents and put everything back where it belonged. Emma returned with the bags and suddenly stopped, looking at me. What are you looking for? Nothing, just checking the mail, I answered, trying not to show alarm. She stepped closer and looked me in the eyes. You're hiding something, aren't you? Me? Why would you think that? Her gaze turned icy. Don't play games with me, Tom. I know you're going through my things. I froze. What do you mean? You've been checking my phone, going through my bag. I'm not blind. I was terrified. Did she know all along? You're hiding the truth from me, I answered firmly. Who was the man in the cafe? She grinned. Do you really think I don't notice anything? That night I heard her talking again. This time she was talking more intensely. No, he's starting to suspect something. Yes, I'll continue the operation. I recorded the whole thing on a tape recorder. Tom and I listened to the tape the next morning. The operation? What kind of operation? Tom frowned. I have no idea. We decided to get the coordinates from the map. They pointed to an abandoned building on the outskirts of town. We went there, but it was empty inside. Only on the floor I noticed traces of dirt and small scratches on the concrete, as if the furniture had been moved recently. When I got home, I decided to talk to Emma directly. I know you're hiding something. Who is this person? What's the operation? Her face turned pale, but she didn't look away. I should have told you before. But I couldn't. What do you mean? Not who you know me to be. I froze. I work for an organization that deals with controlling targets. You're one of them. What? We're testing the effects on memory and perception. You're part of an experiment. I was assigned to monitor you 3 years ago. The world collapsed. So you've been lying this whole time? I didn't choose. But, then I really fell in love with you. That's not part of the plan. I didn't know how to react. There was only one thing going through my head. All this time I've been living in an artificial reality. When reality collapses, the only question left is, how long have you been part of someone else's game? I stood in front of Emma, unable to believe her words. My wife had been a fake all this time, an observer in an experiment. You've been, following me? Emma nodded, but her eyes filled with tears. I didn't want to. I was forced to. It was my duty. But I really did love you, Jake. I was overcome with a mixture of rage and despair. What kind of experiment? What observation? Why me? You're the subject of the Epsilon program. We were supposed to test how people react to changes in their loved ones. But then something went wrong. I grabbed my head. So you were just playing the part of my wife? All this time? At first, yes. But then I started to feel, I didn't know it would happen like this. I was trying to process what was happening when there was a knock on the door. Emma tensed sharply. It's them, she whispered. Who? The people from the project. They can't let you know the truth. I quickly closed all the windows and turned on the security camera on the porch. 2 men in black suits stood on the doorstep. Jake, we need to talk, one of them said. Get out. I shouted back. Emma grabbed my arm. We don't have time. If they come in, they'll take you away. We have to leave. Go where? I have a place. But we have to hurry. I took my backpack with my papers and money. Emma pointed to the back exit. Through the garden. They won't see us in time. We ran out into the backyard and snuck through the hedge to the neighbor's property. I could see the men trying to kick the door in. We rushed to the car and drove away. As we drove down the deserted road, I tried to make sense of everything I had heard. My wife, my Emma, was part of some monstrous experiment. Why are they so insistent on bringing you back? I asked. I ran away. When I realized my love for you was real. They can't allow that. The experiment has to be clean. You ran away from them? Yes. I found out they were planning to replace a few more people and take the experiment to the next level. If they realize I've failed, they'll just eliminate me. My mind refused to accept that information. I looked at Emma, her eyes glittered with fear and determination. Why me? Why choose my life? Because you are an example of stability and loyalty. They needed to test how a person would react to the switch if the change was minimal. We were a few kilometers down a country road when I noticed a headlight in the mirror. The car was moving fast, clearly catching up with us. Is that them? It's probably them. I turned sharply onto the forest path, trying to hide in the dense vegetation. The car stopped by the road, and I saw 2 men in black get out. They're coming toward us, Emma whispered. We need to hide. We took cover behind the trunk of a huge oak tree, watching the men check for footprints on the path. I held Emma's hand, feeling her fingers trembling. Suddenly I heard a whisper behind me. "Are you here?" I turned around and saw Mark. He gestured for me to follow him. We crept through the woods to a small abandoned house. Mark quickly led us inside and closed the door. "What's going on?" I asked. "I tried to warn you," Mark whispered. "These people are part of Project Epsilon. They create perfect partners to test how long a person can go without noticing the switch." "Why did they choose Emma?" I asked warily. "Because she passed all the compatibility tests. They made her the perfect wife for you. But one thing they didn't take into account was her capacity for personal development. She became more than just a project." Emma lowered her head. "I didn't mean to deceive you, Jake. But when the feelings became real, it was too late." Mark explained that he'd once been such a target himself, but his switch had failed, his wife had noticed something wrong and he'd run away. Now he helps people like Emma hide. "Do you realize that you will always be hunted?" I asked Emma. "I do. But I don't want to be part of their game anymore." Suddenly there was the sound of breaking glass. One of the men in black had gotten through the window. I grabbed a heavy stick and hit him over the head. He fell to the floor unconscious. The second man burst into the room with his gun at the ready, but Mark fired first. The man collapsed before he could fire a shot. We realized this was just the beginning. These men would not leave us alone. Mark suggested we go to the mountains where there was a secret hideout. While we were packing, Emma came up to me and said quietly, "If you want to leave, I understand. I don't want you to suffer because of me." I looked at her and smiled. "If you really love me, we'll get through this together. I won't leave you." She smiled and I realized I had made the right decision. We drove off into the night, leaving behind broken lives and a deceptive reality. A few weeks passed. We settled into a small cabin in the mountains. Sometimes I felt like someone was watching us, but Emma assured me we were safe. One morning I woke up to the sound of footsteps outside the door. I walked out onto the porch and saw a note nailed to the door. "We know where you are. This isn't over." I clutched the piece of paper and looked around. No one. But I knew, our fight wasn't over. When reality collapses, there's only one thing left to do: fight for your truth, even if it's against the whole world.